and welcome to my English class. Here is an activity for you. Figure it out. Here are some idioms featuring numbers. Their meanings are given alongside as clues. How many of them can you identify? First one is back to square dash. Meaning of this idiom is back to the old position. Back to square dash. In the dash, you must fill a number, and that number and the whole idiom back to square dash meaning should be back to the old position. Second one, at the dash hour, at the last possible minute. 3. Catch dash wings, meaning clue is take a nap. Fourth one, in the dash heaven, clue is very happy. So go through all the 4 incomplete idioms and their clues, and you have to fill the numbers in them. But meaning should be equal to the clues given. Rack your brains and also your knowledge about idioms. Answers will be given at the end of this class. Shall we move? Love and courage go together. You might have heard this sentence. I've given some stories, novels or plays of the theme love and courage. All's well that ends well, As You Like It, The Broken Heart, A Fairy Night, The Gentleman of Venice are some of the novels, plays based on the theme of love and courage. Have you read any other or watched any movies based on the theme of love and bravery? Recall. Today, we are going to learn a story of a young knight called Lochinvar, written by Walter Scott. Let's know about the author. Sir Walter Scott, a Scottish novelist, poet, historian and a biographer who is often considered both the inventor and the greatest practitioner of the historical novel. From his earliest years, Scott was fond of listening to his elderly relatives' stories of the Scottish border, and he too became a voracious reader of poetry, history, drama, and fairy tales and romances. Scott was the master of a rich, ornate, seemingly effortless literary style that blended energy with decorum, lyric beauty with clarity of description. The Lady of the Lake, Waverley, Old Mortality, Rob Roy, The Heart of Midlothian, The Bride of Longmoor, and Ivanhoe are some of his famous novels. In this popular ballad, Lochinvar, Sir Walter Scott tells us how in olden days brave young men in Scotland possessed the necessary dash and pluck to do extraordinary things. There are totally 8 stanzas in this poem, which we call a ballad. First 4 will be covered today. I'll read the first and second stanza and then the third and fourth stanza. Listen carefully. Oh, young Lochinvar, has come out of the west. Through all the wide border, his steed was the best. And save his good broadsword, he weapons had none. He rode all unarmed, and he rode all alone. So faithful in love, and so dauntless in war, there never was knight like the young Lochinvar. He stayed not for brake, and he stopped not for stone. He swam the S river where ford there was none. But ere he alighted at the Netherby gate, the bride had consented. The gallant came late. For a laggard in love and a dastard in war was to wed a fair Ellen of brave Lochinvar. Just go through these two stanzas. I told you the poem Lochinvar is a ballad. Ballad is a poem of some 8 stanzas. This ballad has 8 stanzas, and if you observe stanzas, these 2 stanzas, there are 6 lines. Each stanza has 6 lines, and the last 2 lines you observe, the couplets. First stanza's last 2 lines, so faithful in love and so dauntless in war, there never was a knight like the young Lochinvar. And the last 2 lines of the second stanza, for a laggard in love and the dastard in war was to wed fair Ellen of brave Lochinvar. Underline even in your textbook. See, there is a repetition of this rhyme in all the stanzas of this ballad. Let's go through the rhyme scheme. Can you mark the rhyming words? West, best, none, lone, you can say known, lone, war, rockin' war, stone, known, gate, late, war, Lochinvar. So here last 2, that is the couplets, are have the same rhyme scheme. And here west, best. If we give a letter to these 2 pair of rhyming words, we can give letter A. Lone, known, B. War, Lochinvar, C. Now, let's see whether the pronunciation of the second stanza's rhyming words are same. Stone, known. It's different, isn't it? Next one. Gate, late. We can give their letter, different letter. And here also, gate, late. If it is D, we can give E here. And to war and Lochinvar's pronunciation is same. So, we give their letter C, C, C. So, rhyme scheme is A, B, B, C, C, D, D, E, E, and again C, C. So, let's move on with this set. Now, I'll ask you some questions. Are you ready? Where did Lochinvar come from? He came from the west. What does the border signify? Border here is the border between England and Scotland. What was the best? What was the best? His steed was the best. Steed here is the horse. How did it help him? Did the steed, galleon or the horse help him? Yes, it helped him to reach the area or the destination quickly. Who travelled with him? No one. He travelled alone. Did he have any weapon? He did have only one, that is the broadsword. Was he in a hurry, children? Was he in a hurry? Yes, you can say he was in a hurry because he didn't stay for brake nor he stopped for stone. And he swam the river And then where did he reach? He reached the Netherby gate. Why did he come? Because the girl whom he loved was getting married to someone else. Let's move on to the third and the fourth stanzas. So boldly he entered the Netherby hall among the bridesmen and kinsmen and brothers and all. Then spoke the bride's father, his hand on his sword. For the poor craven bridegroom said never a word. Oh, come here in peace here, or come here in war, or to dance at the bridal, young Lord Lochinvar? I long wooed your daughter, my suit you denied. Love swells like the Solway, but ebbs like its tide. And now am I come with this lost love of mine, to lead but one measure, drink one cup of wine. There are maidens in Scotland more lovely by far, that would gladly be bride to the young Lochinvar. Correct this line. Love swells like the Solway and ebbs like its tide. Let's go back to these two stanzas again. Can you pick out the rhymes? Hall, all, sword, word, war, Lochinvar, denied, tide, mine and wine, far and Lochinvar. Again, the last couplet. Each stanza, both the stanzas have the same rhyme scheme, that is war, Lochinvar, far, Lochinvar, and the other letters you fill in now, as I told you in the first stanza and the second. Continue to do the same with these rhymes also. Here, where did he enter? He entered the Netherby hall. Who were standing there in the hall? Anybody? Yes, bridesmen, kinsmen, brothers, and all the family members of the bridegroom and the bride were assembled there. Who spoke in a brave, loud voice? Father. What did he say? He said, you come here in peace or in war. What does the poet call the bridegroom? He calls him, can you underline the word? He calls him a poor craven. He stood like a dastard, isn't it? In the second stanza, dastard and laggard. What is the reply given by Lochinvar? He says, love swells like the Solway and ebbs like its tide. And I have not come here to marry your daughter, but I just came to have fun in the wedding party. Let's see what is the explanation of the poem. In the first stanza, before that, let's move on to learn certain new words from the glossary. Border is between England and Scotland. Broadsword is a battle sword with a broad double-edged blade. Dauntless is fearless. Underline these words in your poem. Knight is a horse. Knight is a man of high social position, trained to fight as a soldier on a horse. And steed is the horse. Stayed is stopped. Break is a ticket. Ford is a shallow point where the river can be crossed on foot. Alighted, got down. Underline these words in your textbook. First 4 stanzas. Netherby is the hall in the north of England. Laggard, one who lags behind or a timid person. Dastard is cowardly. Solway is the river that separates England from Scotland. Measure is a slow and stately dance for two. Underline these words and read it once again. Let's go through the summary. The first stanza tells us that Lochinvar was a brave knight of Scotland. He crossed the wide border on his favorite and fantastic horse. His horse had helped him move swiftly. The brave heart was a skilled fighter, so he needed no other weapon than his stately sword. He carried a broadsword. It was enough to send terror down his enemy's spine. His strength was the faithful love he shared with Elaine, the girl whom he loved. Lochinvar was incomparable to any other knight in the records of history. This ballad describes the daring act of dashing knight, that is Lochinvar, and it's a romantic tale of a dauntless lover. And it tells us the gripping action, stirring measure, and imaginative appeal of the writer, that is the poet Sir Walter Scott. This is the summary of the first poem, part of the poem, that is the first stanza. Let's go to the second stanza's explanation. Now, Lochinvar wanted to reach the Netherby Hall urgently. He doesn't care for the physical exhaustion or obstacles on his way. He crossed the mountain, he crossed the break, he crossed the hills and the valleys, and even the shallow river. He was tireless in his pursuit of victory. The brave knight crossed the Esk river bravely and without fear. In spite of all his hurry, he was not able to reach the Netherby Hall in time. You can see the picture here. Before he could reach the gate, the bride had given consent to marry a man of her father's choice. Gallant had promised to come on time, but he was not there to rescue Elaine. And what type of a groom she was going to marry? That is her father's choice. The groom was timid and a cowardly man. He was neither an ardent lover nor a brave warrior. He lacked the qualities that were required of a nobleman. He did not even put up a fight when Lochinvar entered the hall. He was not at all worthy of the beauty and the grace of Elaine. That's what Sir Walter Scott writes in the second stanza. In the third stanza, the poet describes Lochinvar's bravery. Lochinvar boldly entered the Netherby Hall. The relatives, kinsmen, brothers of the bride were all present there. Lochinvar's arrival was considered an open act of outrage, but Lochinvar remains unperturbed. The bride's father, with his hand on his sword, inquires Lochinvar of his intentions. But the bridegroom did not say a word. He stood silent like a laggard. He did not have quality of bravery. He was a coward. But the father asked Lochinvar whether he came there as a friend to dance at the wedding party or with an intention of war. The line which tells, "Have you come here in war or peace?" That's what the father asks. Now, what's the reply of Lochinvar? Lochinvar gives a bold reply. He says that he had long wooed his daughter's hand, but her father had refused the proposal. He gives a defiant and bold reply. He says that love swells like Solway but ebbs like its tide. Here, love is compared to the ebb and flow of river Solway. He compares He says, my love was for your daughter Ellen was swelling like Solway at one point of time, but now it's receded like its low tide. This line doesn't reflect actually his love for Ellen. He is speaking thoughtlessly, so that people would not know his true intentions. And this line, can you identify the figure of speech used here? Love swells like Solway and ebbs like its tide. Yes, you are right. It is simile. River Solway's ebb is compared to the love of a person. Next, he spoke thoughtlessly so that people would not know his true intentions. Here, Lochinvar wanted to convince her father, underline, that he had no wrong desire towards her. This is the way he tries to convince the father. He further states that he had come to the wedding to have a cup of wine and with her, dance with her before she marries. He also declares that he no longer loved her and there were pretty maidens in Scotland who would gladly be his bride. In this way, he convinces the bride's father, he tries to convince the bride's father and the guest that he had only come to attend the wedding. So he doesn't disclose the real intention. Why he does this, we shall come to know in the remaining stanzas, that is the second part of the poem, which will be done in the next class. This is the homework. Annotate, that is, you have to write with reference to context. First one, love swells like the Solway but ebbs like its tide. Second, then spoke the bride's father, his hand on his sword. Third, and save his broad sword, he weapons had none. Fourth, but he alighted at the Netherby gate. All these four are taken from the different stanzas, 1 to 4 stanzas. Underline the lines, go through the summary once again and pick out the lines and write your own annotation. How to write the annotation, students? First, you write this line, love swells like the Solway but ebbs like its tide. From which poem it is taken? This line is taken from the poem Lochinvar, written by Sir Walter Scott. Then you write what is the main theme of the poem. And in the next part, you have to explain that line's stanza. Is it clear? Now it's time for the answer of the first figure it out fun with words game. Back to square. What's the answer? Back to square. It is 1. Back to square 1. Meaning is back to the old position. Second one. At the 11th hour. You're right. At the last possible minute. We say at the 11th hour. What's the number there? 11. Catch dash wings. Take a nap. What is the blank? What's the answer there? Catch 40 wings, we say. Very good. And the fourth one is in the dash heaven. That is meaning of the idiom is very happy. In the 7th heaven. How many have got all 4 right? Very good. To all the children who have got all the 4 idioms correctly. I hope the first 4 stanzas are clear to you. Read them once again. And you have to memorize the first of these 4 stanzas. Every day, 1 each you can memorize. So, goodbye children. See you in my next class.